All right, look what we've got here. A delivery from Tamura Designs. These are my new gecko enclosures. So if you guys remember, a couple of months ago at the Pomona Reptile Expo, I featured Tamura Designs and their really innovative reptile enclosures. Excuse me. Well, I was so impressed with Tamura Designs that I actually bought brand new enclosures for all of my geckos. I'm going to show you guys how to set them up, and I'm also going to show you how to design them for around maybe 40 or 50 bucks. I'm Dāv Kaufman, and these are my reptile adventures. Rainbow Mealworms is not only a proud sponsor of this channel, they are the premier source for all your reptile food needs. They grow all of their quality insects in-house, and I use them exclusively for all my insect-eating reptiles. So place your order today at rainbowmealworms.net or click the link in the description below. Alright guys, so welcome to my living room. This is where I have my display rack of geckos. I've got gargoyle geckos, crested geckos, and I have those day geckos that I bought at Tinley, if you guys remember that video. But the plan is that I'm going to replace all of these enclosures with Tamura Design enclosures, and there's a couple of reasons why I'm doing that. These enclosures, some of them are Exoterras, some of them are Zilla front opening enclosures. They are great enclosures, but what I don't like about having a rack with all of these different sized enclosures is I don't like that skyscraper effect. This is a display piece in my living room, and I really kind of want it nice and clean and uniform, and that's where these Tamura Design enclosures come in perfectly. But right now, let's unpack these Tamura Design enclosures. You guys are gonna love these. Look at this. This is the front of the enclosure. So it's all black on this side. You've got white screen tops over here. So this part is the bottom over here. And these doors just lock like that, and then they'll open just like that. And look at that. There is so much room in there. An adult gargoyle gecko can live very happily within this enclosure. All right, I've got two more of these to unpack, and then we can get all of these off of here and start designing our enclosures. So for the substrate that I'm going to use in these enclosures, I'm going to use the exact same substrate that I use with my ball pythons, and that's this big, chunky coconut husk product. Whether it be Cocoa Blocks from Freedom Breeder or Reptichip, any one of those will work well, and the reason why I use that on my geckos is because this substrate is designed to hold in moisture and hold in humidity. And when I was in New Caledonia, obviously we visited the crested gecko habitat, and it was warm and humid there. But we did visit the gargoyle gecko habitat, and they are found higher in elevation up in the mountains, where it's a lot cooler and it's a lot wetter. So it is imperative to keep that humidity pretty high when you're keeping gargoyle geckos and, to a lesser extent, crested geckos. All right, so I've got all the other cages out. I've got the new ones in on this baker's rack right here. The cool thing about Tamura Designs is they come with these pieces here that just kind of clip right onto the shelf above them, and they really add for an aesthetic on this display enclosure. And you can run a misting system line right along the top here, and these pieces come out and the misting ports go right through the top of the cage, and you can set up an automatic mister to these enclosures. All right, so now that I've got all this set up on this baker's rack, now it's time to design them. So the best place to find really inexpensive things for your gecko enclosure is at a reptile expo like here in Tinley Park. So if you find a table like here at Gecko Junkie, you are gonna find much more inexpensive stuff for your geckos than you would find at the national chains. Like, look at this. This is a decor plant. This would be maybe 20, maybe even 30 bucks at chain stores. Look at it here, $8 for this. So I'm gonna pick up a couple of these things. And then look at this Reptivine. These are so cool. They're bendable, and they're actually a really cool color, and they really augment your gecko enclosure. Look at this, 18 bucks for this. This would be maybe 30 or $40 at a retail national chain. And then look at this. That is cool. Lots of broad leaves to hold that moisture, bendable stem. This is a hanging bush, 18 bucks. Again, this would be 40, maybe 50 bucks at a national retail chain. I'm picking up one of those. And then you've got the red coloration in this one. $8. Again, 25, 30 bucks at a national retail chain. I'm picking up one of those. And then these clear acrylic feeding ledges that come with these suction cups. Look at that, $14.99 for this. This would probably retail at any retail shop for, I don't know, let's just say $400. I don't know how much these things cost. And then you can also get Josh's Frog's Cocoa Husk Brick for, look at that, $10.99 for this entire brick. That'll be enough substrate for at least a couple of cages. 11 bucks for this block of substrate. You can't beat that. And if you want to go for the Josh's Frogs Cocoa Brick, which is really fine, which I suggest putting this on the bottom and then the thicker stuff on the top, look at that, $5 for this brick. This will also be enough for a few enclosures. And then if you want to decorate it with some of this sheet moss, which is really cool, makes your enclosure really aesthetic, this whole bag, 10 bucks. All right, guys, so I'm back from Tinley. I've got all of our cage making swag right here. You know, a lot of people ask me why I use these silk plants or plastic plants instead of real plants. And well, the reason is I kill real plants. I don't have a single real plant in my house, and I don't know why. But there's another reason why. When you have a bioactive setup with live plants, you know, for me, it's just really hard to thoroughly clean that enclosure. And with plastic or silk plants, you know, these hold moisture just as good as the live ones do. The water beads up. That's what your geckos are drinking. But for me, to really deep clean my enclosures, you can take these out, run them through the dishwasher cycle without soap on warm water, hang them out to dry, and boom, you've got sterilized plants for your enclosures. And on that note, I'm sure you're asking why I'm not setting these up to be bioactive enclosures. These enclosures by Tamura Designs are perfectly suited to be set up as bioactive enclosures, but for me personally, I just don't like bioactive. There's nothing wrong with bioactive. Bioactive enclosures are really cool, they're really popular, but for me, I just find that if I have a misting system hooked up to this, which I'm not going to hook up, but I will when I travel, so it's one less thing for my caretakers to do, but I am still using this mister that is hand pumped, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I like the interaction with my geckos. And basically, if you have a bioactive enclosure with a misting system, you've essentially made that enclosure fully automated. And again, I just love to work with my geckos. I love the feeling of working with them. And plus, by working with them every day, I can keep better track of their growth, their health, if they're eating, what they're needing. And I just fear that if I set up a fully automated bioactive enclosures for these guys, well, the tendency for me to get lazy is going to be there, and it would remove that feeling of working with them. And again, working with my geckos on a daily basis are what I really enjoy about having these guys. So I've got a layer of the cocoa blocks in every one of these enclosures. So what we're going to do is we are going to design this enclosure for crested geckos. So my crested geckos are pretty big, they're adults, and so I'm going to start with a cork tube of appropriate size. Man, I'll tell you, cork tubes are a gecko lover's dream. They provide lots of cover, lots of hiding spots, and they're very aesthetic. And all I'm going to do is prop that up in the corner, kind of anchor it down with the substrate there, make sure that it's not going to fall. So when it comes to feeding trays, Zilla makes this really cool and aesthetic rock ledge feeding tray. My geckos love this thing. They sit up on top and eat, and then I always see them on the bottom ledge right after they've eaten. And this connects right to the side here with a little suction cup, and so we're going to attach that right there. All right, so I've got the feeding tray secured to the side. All we need is maybe some vines that lead the gecko up to the feeding tray, and maybe some plants in there to provide some cover. All right, so I've just taken one of these bendy vines and just kind of placed it in the enclosure, made sure that there's several access points with the vine up to the feeding tray, and now we're just going to add this silk plant, and I'm just going to put this right in the upper corner over here. All right, so we're just going to affix that plant right to the side there, and if you've noticed what I've done is I put the plant over the entrance of the cork bark so that when the gecko goes under these leaves for cover, he has access to that cork bark. We've got the cork bark sticking out a little bit to give that some aesthetics. And that's it. That's all that it takes to build a really solid gecko enclosure. You don't need to spend a lot of money, but I basically designed this so that we've got food, we've got plenty of shelter. That gecko is going to feel very secure in this enclosure. And I did it for about maybe $30 to $40 worth of stuff. And now this is ready for our gecko. All right, so this is going to be the female's enclosure. There you go. There you go, girl. Come on. Welcome home. Now, the other thing that I like about these enclosures is that the gecko now feels secure within this enclosure. He can't look over here and see his neighbor in a cage that I'm yet to design there, but she's got everything that she needs in here. And again, it's really that simple to set up a cost-effective and really aesthetic gecko enclosure. All right, so right in the middle is going to be my male. And this one over here is going to be for one of my adult gargoyle geckos. We're going to set up that one next. So for feeding trays for my gargoyle geckos, I love this shelf mushroom that also is put out by Zilla. And it's the same mechanics as the one that we just put in the Crested gecko. It's this locking suction cup that just fits right to the side, and we're just going to put that right there. So I've got that shelf mushroom feeding tray in here, and now we're going to design this. And what I've done is I've taken one of the vines and I've actually wrapped one of the silk plants around it. So what I've done is I've created cover along this vine like this so that when the gecko is on this vine, he doesn't feel exposed. He has cover no matter where on this vine he perches or he sleeps. But not only that, but now I have a place to stick that cork bark tube and have the vines wrap around the cork bark tube like that. So in just 3 items, a vine, a silk plant, and cork bark, I have made a lot of places for my gecko to hide and feel secure. And I did it, again, for maybe about $25 worth of stuff. Now also for this enclosure, I'm going to use some of this Josh's Frogs sheet moss that we got at Tinley just for some aesthetics. I'm just going to take a little bit and I'm just going to kind of put that on the ground there. And it doesn't really matter where you put it. I mean, this is just for aesthetic purposes. But the cool part about this moss is that it will also hold in that moisture and humidity. So I'm going to kind of do a little cork bark over here, a little moss over there. We've got our windy vine, and we've got our cork bark, and we've got our feeding tray. This enclosure is now ready for our gargoyle gecko. You guys may remember this gargoyle gecko. If you've been watching my videos for a while, you've met this gargoyle gecko before. This was the one that was gifted to me by Edgar at Gecko Gen. He is now an adult, big and beautiful. Look at those bold colors on him. Man, this is going to be a gecko that I am looking really forward to breeding one of these days. There's a completed enclosure. It's certainly not a bioactive Serpa design quality enclosure, but if you're doing this on a budget, we've just created the interior of this cage for about 30 or 40 bucks. All right, guys, so I've got all of these enclosures set up. I've got the geckos in their new homes, but for this video, I wanted to show you a real quick, simple, easy, and very cost-effective way of setting up gecko enclosures for about 40 or 50 bucks that basically covers all of your gecko's needs. And on that note, again, this is my living room and this is a display piece. And when you have as many animals and as much money invested as I do, you know, listen, security is always going to be a factor. And so real quick, I just want to introduce you to this product from Reolink. These are security cameras that the good folks at Reolink sent me, but I have hooked up these security cameras around my house so that no one can get in here without being recorded. These cameras are fully automated from your smartphone. You can download the app, and right on your app, no matter where you are in the world, you can control the direction that the camera is facing. You can look around your room. These are really awesome security cameras, and they are really easy to use and set up. So if you'd like to learn more about Reolink's security cameras, I'm going to put their link in the description below. Go check them out. So anyway, guys, I hope that this video has given you a little bit of insight and some really good ideas on how to design new gecko enclosures on a budget. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and until the next reptile adventure, love the planet, feed your reptile obsession, and rattle on.